podcast. I'm your host, John Picciuto, and I'm very excited to have the one and only Miss Sienna Browne with us today. How you doing, my friend?
I'm great. How are you, John?
Oh, I'm so good. It's so good to catch up. I know it's been a while. What's new? What's going on? How are you?
Everything's new. Everything's new, and it's so exciting and beautiful. I'm living in North County, San Diego, managing an artist collective, and doing a lot of painting commissions and ceremony work, and having this beautiful community of people out here. So, um, life is just transforming in the most beautiful ways.
That's awesome. When did you start managing an artist collective? That sounds new.
Yeah, I started doing that right around when I came here. I moved to North County, San Diego, August, August, and I was walking around Encinitas and Solana and Del Mar passing on business cards, and I walked into this artist collective and really felt at home there with the owner, Royal Parvis, and um, just the energy of the space felt really beautiful, and I knew I wanted to be a part of it. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I started hanging my work there, and that was really beautiful and huge for me to just move to a new place and immediately have my work hanging on a major street. And
Mm-hmm.
slowly, over the past few months, I've just been taking on more responsibility at the business.
Nice. Yeah, I've been a big fan of a lot of the portal paintings that you've been doing lately. I just find them so, I want to say, like therapeutically entrancing. Like I find myself like staring at them for a while. What's like the process that goes into like creating something like that? Because it's something that I don't know if it's like a known type of artwork, but it was new to me at least. So, how do you start creating something like that? And like, where do those sort of like inspirations come from?
I love portals. So it feels really groundbreaking to me too. It starts with the intention. So before I start the piece, I identify where I want to go, or if I'm working with a client, we figure out where they want to go through the portal. And then we identify some sort of written inscription, or I identify some sort of written inscription that's supportive of that idea. So, like, let's say you want a painting or you want a portal that's about transforming blockages, about confidence, about getting out of the mind and into the body, about grounding. I would choose the Ganapati mantra, that's the mantra of Ganesh, and so I code the entire painting with that mantra. I'll write it over and over and over and over. If it's a mantra, I'll be listening to it, I'll be singing it. I'm an energy healer and a medicine woman, so I'm writing that and putting that energy into the piece, and then all of the colors, the shapes, and the organic materials are supportive of that intention. So the portal could be using your wedding vows. The portal could be to um, heal something. I started teaching my method too, and that's really powerful because when I make the portal or when I make a painting for someone, it's like it's holding my energy and um, it's what I love to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful process, but witnessing someone else use their own hand and writing their own affirmation into their painting. Like, I am beautiful, writing I am beautiful over and over and over, and like witnessing themselves write it and seeing their handwriting and then choosing their colors and their materials that are like specific for them in that work um, has been really, really beautiful and powerful too.
What made you start doing those? Like, what drew you to them in the first place?
So art has always been my method of healing.
Sure.
Since before I could remember, before I was conscious of it, that's what I was using it for. And when I started um, studying Eastern spirituality, um, like Ganesh, and working with different deities, and using their mantras, I thought like I was wanting to memorize mantras. I was wanting to memorize the Ganapati mantra, specifically Ganesh's mantra. And I was thinking, oh, well, the easiest way for me to memorize this is for me to like write it a million times on the canvas and sing it and listen to it while I'm doing it. And then while I was painting it, I realized how powerful it was because it was like I felt it because I was singing it. I was looking at myself write it and I was listening to it over and over. It became like a very spiritual, ritualistic practice for me. And then I just thought, wow, the sky's the limit with this. Like you can make a portal for anything. You can make a portal for wanting to develop confidence. You can make it for wanting a new house. Like that's what I was gonna too tired last night, but I'm making a portal right now for like um my new home. So
Hmm.
you can just through any I am statement, any affirmation, any mantra, it's art mantra.
So it's basically like putting an intentionality of something that you're hopeful for, desiring, and putting it into a artwork that is meant to sort of help manifest that thing, right?
You're
Is that sort of
creating your reality through the creation of the art piece.
got it? So if I'm it, sorry, this is all new to me. I find it very interesting. Is this something where like I need to be the person that creates the portal for myself to realize these things, or I can hire someone who's as talented as you and be like, Sienna, this is like what I'm hoping for, and then you create a portal for me, and then me having this piece of artwork in my house, then through your creation of it aids in my desire. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
so it's both. So either you can
Okay,
create it or someone who understands how it works can. Me, I like that's the commissions that I do, that's what they are. So
got it.
identify together what they're wanting to create and then I'll choose an affirmation or mantra that's supportive of that. And then I'll choose colors and shapes and mixed materials that are all supportive of that intention. So like let's say someone is wanting to put a portal in their little boy's room, we might choose a mantra like I am safe or I would choose I am safe and writing I am safe over and over, maybe using like blue, purple, spiritual protective color, and then I might find like certain feathers or like maybe owl feathers or crane feathers and embroider them into the piece like different elements from the earth that have those properties of protection. And so then that would be in their space. So because this is my passion and I'm an artist, the piece is going to turn out different if I do it versus if you do it. But if you do it, the intention is there, so the portal will still work.
Interesting. Interesting. When you're like sort of splitting your time between like commission work and like your own desired creative outlet, right? Like, you know, just you and a canvas, etc. When you're working on your own stuff, what have you mostly been drawn to lately from like a creative perspective?
Well, very recently, I'm starting to paint my own ceremony materials. So I painted my drum, I painted my rattle. I'm in the middle of painting some buckets and some cups because I facilitate ceremonies. So right now, like the last few days, that's what I've been working on. I would say my personal creative work is either that, like adorning my materials that I bring into my ceremony space, or making portals for myself. Um, because I love the process. Like it feels like a totally new territory for me. Like I'm not just painting something to look like something. Like I'm painting something that will bring me into a new reality. Um, like timeline hopping somewhere that I want to go. So it's like, why would I not be using my time to do this? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. I feel like when we spoke last, like, I mean, not personally, but like podcast wise, like a year ago or so, things were like totally in flux, right? Like you were, I think you were not living in Northern County, San Diego, right? I think you
Yeah,
were you in San Diego? Say that
I was
again?
in Ventura.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you're like living in a different place. You're doing different things for work. So like obviously it's been a transformative year for you. Like things have changed a lot. You're living a new life. You're like doing new things. You're like being more creative in a new and adventurous way. What are like some of the lessons that you've learned about in life and just about yourself in the last year?
Mm, always tell the truth.
It's a good one.
And that means like obviously not lying, but like also don't lie to yourself
Mm,
and honor your body, honor your intuition, and follow your joy.
I like that. I was talking to a mutual acquaintance of ours yesterday, Justin Rosenberg, who just such a fantastic human being.
Well,
Um, yeah, he's the best. And I was talking about how, like, weirdly enough, like, I know you're very much into the spiritual, and we've had a lot of conversations about this in the past, personally, and on the podcast. And to me, like, I've always found a lot of that sort of stuff to be just not really within my purview or my window of understanding. But in a lot of ways, like in the last couple of years, like at least in the last two, I've like really built out a life for myself that is something that is completely outside of what I would have imagined, and in so many ways a million times better than I could have ever hoped for. And like a lot of that was like through conversations with friends like you, who are like, you can like literally manifest the things that you want in your life. Like you can think it into existence. And like pragmatically, I was like, this is just fucking dumb, right? Like you can't just like think something into existence. But in so many different ways, I've like been actually doing that in the last couple of years, and it's been such a treat for me from afar to witness you sort of start doing the same process in your own life. When you start realizing, accomplishments or goals or whatever, like those manifestations for yourself, like what does that feel like for you personally when you like accomplish something that you just sort of dreamt up for yourself, you know a month ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever? Like what is that sort of like that uncovering of that feeling feel like for you?
I could be better about celebrating it because it's happening a lot lately. Like I'm getting a lot of commissions. People are starting to recognize the power of my work, facilitating ceremonies, like brewing my own medicine, and like I'm doing things that last year I would have been like, "What? You're doing that?" Like I would have been so happy, and I kind of my dreams and my goals are so big that these things feel really little, even though they're huge and they're steps on the path to those big dreams and goals. So I guess to answer your question, a lot of times I don't even look and I just keep going, but I
Hmm.
need to be better about celebrating every
Yeah, no, I'm sort of the same. Like it takes me a while to realize that I just accomplished something that was like really cool, or like something that 5 year ago John would have been like, "What the fuck?" Like like no way. Like I recently shot Third Eye Blind, and they're like one of my favorite bands of all
win.
time, and yeah, it was awesome. It was like the fucking best night of my life, and immediately after, like my ears are bleeding basically, and like it was just the best. And I'm sitting there like downloading all the images off of my camera, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I can't believe I just fucking did that. I don't think I really like it, never really processed until like maybe legit like a month later. I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I did that. Like the lead guitarist for Third Eye Blind posted one of my photos. Like Third Eye Blind, the band's Instagram page, shared my work. Like that's just a wild, amazing thing that 3 years ago I could never have imagined something like that. I mean, it's so trivial and silly, like social media, big deal. But to me, it was like, holy shit. Like, yeah, yeah. It was
But
like it was pretty wild.
that's like a
Yeah,
deal, right? Like
yeah. Yeah, no, I know, I know. No, it's you know, as with everything in life, there's a love hate relationship that I have with social media that we could spend hours and hours going into. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like I shouldn't care, but I should care. It's important, but it's not. It's blah, you know, blah, whatever. I do need to rewind real quick. You said you're brewing your own medicine. Can you can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I brew my own version of ayahuasca. So,
Oh,
yeah,
sweet. So I'm assuming you've done it.
yeah, yeah. I,
I'm so wildly curious about this, and also absolutely petrified, so much so that I will absolutely never do it.
don't say never. Don't say never. Too beautiful. The spirit of the plant comes through a lot of different plants. It's a combination
Hmm.
of two plants. So the spirit of ayahuasca comes through a DMT containing plant and an MAO inhibitor, which is essentially the type of plant that temporarily binds to the receptors to allow your body to take in DMT without digesting it and killing it. So our body naturally produces DMT when we're sleeping, when we die, when we're born, and when we meditate. Meditate is like you're meditating is literally you're like making DMT while you meditate. There's like it's so stupid not to meditate. Like, it's yeah,
Wow,
yeah. It's
didn't know that. Yeah.
in inspire like inspiration. Meditating is bringing that God particle into. So, anyways, through my own medicine because I've been in relationship with the plant for several years and wanted deeper relationship. And I knew that making her was going to really deepen and it has.
And how often do you do you take ayahuasca?
I'm currently in study with her and in ceremony at least once a month for the journey.
Oh, okay. Talk to me about the process because again, like you know, I know Aaron Rodgers is a big proponent of it, or like maybe he had a bad experience because he played like shit last year. Um, but so you take ayahuasca, you basically trip for many hours, right? It's a long process, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So what is? I mean, can you tell us like what like what it's like? Like I'm sure each experience is vastly different, like any sort of you know psychotropic experience. I've done plenty of drugs, just not ayahuasca. I mean, I don't know if I can compare it to other things, but I'm just curious, like what the whole existence is like, you know, for that 5 hour, 6 hour, whatever hour period.
Yeah. Um, every experience is different. The set and setting changes a lot too. So, whether you're in a community setting with a bunch of people, whether you're studying with um, like different cultures practice different ways. So, like Shipibo tradition, which is uh, rainforest, Amazonian rainforest tribe, they have you lie down versus the Yanawana, which is a different tribe in Brazil, has you sitting up the whole time. Versus Umbanda, which is like an African lineage, they like you wear white and you dance and you might call them gods, which are different African deities. So versus if you sit with a one-on-one facilitator, they might like play a playlist instead of live music. They might sing the whole time, but they might like have a playlist on and you're lying down. So all that to say, every experience is totally different. But what um, what happens most of the time is you taking the medicine and you feel sick because she's working on you, and then at a certain point you purge. And that purge is the release of what you've been holding on to in your mental body, in your emotional body, in your physical body, in your spiritual body. So um, she collects all of that and then you release it. And before you release it, you'll receive insights and downloads from her your intention most of the time. Um, she doesn't always give you what you want, she gives you what you need. So, like, if you go into ceremony, say, give me the lottery ticket, like, I want a million, like, ayahuasca, I want to win $1 million. She's like, probably give you
Sure.
that. Like, probably
Yeah,
give
probably,
you
yeah.
something around prosperity and prosperity consciousness, or like ways that you could expand that, or maybe blind spots that you have around money, but you're not gonna like win the lottery per se.
Sure.
It's a labor of
That's
love. It's
pretty straightforward. Yeah. I would imagine a drug doesn't have the ability to. I mean, if it does, please brew me a batch, mail it over. Like, Powerball's pretty high right now. I'd be totally okay with it. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm in the midst of like a very large growth in my business life, and like everything's sort of going my way. It's hard to like take stock in the fact that I'm sort of just killing it. I
that
mean,
is a secret.
you want that on a t-shirt? Deal. The Wrong Advice podcast. I'm just killing it. No, but in a lot of ways, like I've spent the last couple years like really struggling financially and having a really hard time, um, just like figuring out the business aspect of being a solo entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it. And like I make the joke about the lottery, but like I'm in a place now where like I don't wish for more. Like the abundance in life that I hope for is not ever really monetary. It's like more just time, right? Like I think when you go about what resources we really have a limited supply of, time is obviously the number one that comes to mind.
I agree.
Yeah. No, for sure. When you go through sort of like the transformative year that you've had, where like a lot of like the things that you've been hoping for and dreaming of and manifesting come to reality, what does that do for your own personal desires and hopes for the future? Does that like create an impasse to wanting of more, like when you feel sort of content after you've accomplished a lot, or do you find yourself looking and striving for even more growth? You're already shaking your head.
Fucking fire, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I just, the dreams that I have are so big that it's like, I feel like these ones are happening fast, even though they're huge. And that's why I just need to keep appreciating and being grateful and like taking a fucking second to just sit down and be like, wow, Sienna, I'm so proud of you. Like, wow, Sienna, look what you're doing. Like, look at where you are even a month ago. Like a month ago from now, look what's happening. Like everything's happening so fast, but it needs to, because like what I want is so big. I only have so long. Like, I want every day to count, because if I want to make those giant things happen, then like these things need to be happening for me to get there.
You are super young though. Like yeah, you do admittedly have a lot of time.
Yeah, but like I already know what I want to do. So
Can you give me an example?
I want to build temples and havens around the world. Like I want to build medicine temples. I want to do private meditation rooms for people with big installation portals, but I want to be collaborating with architects and designers to like put on like multi-$100,000 or $1 million projects in like private homes or in retreat centers. And I want to be doing public art projects. And I want to do like a lot of really stuff too down the line. Like when you look at, if you like take a bird's eye view of certain cultures and like looking at like how they created the geography of the land, um, like everything makes sense and everything works together. Like working with the land to create the most um, well-functioning society. But then there's also places where you can tell that the geography of the land is somehow like either where spaceships would have landed or where things may have been able to like open up and come out of the ground. Like people could have gone through different portals and different locations to different planets. And I believe that this is the lifetime where those kinds of things are possible for us to rediscover. Um, so I know someone's got to believe it for it to happen. And so because I believe it, it's going to happen. But I want to have a lot of money so that people will believe me. And so I'm in rooms with other people with a lot of money so that we can like build those things.
Gotcha. So, I guess my next question should be: do you believe in aliens? That's a
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. But like,
Yeah.
not like, not,
Little green men.
not like little green men, just like other beings. Like,
Yeah. I've
I think
always,
I'd freak out. You know, I'd be like, oh, cool. Finally.
yeah. I've always, so I like the thought contemplation on are we alone in the universe has always been one that's like super interested in me. I think it's like so narcissistic of human beings to think like, oh, we're the only show in town kind of thing, which is just like the sheer audacity of, or like impossibility and improbability of that to me is too large to even, you know, quantify that we're alone. um I do have always considered the thought that like we are our own aliens, like, you know, civilization hit a peak like who knows how long ago, and then, you know, we left Earth or came from somewhere else and ended up here, right?
Mhm.
Like, you know, starting a different galaxy, a million billion light years away, etc. I've always thought that was probable versus, you know, i.e. little green men. Or we're just living in a computer simulation and none of it none of it matters at all.
I could see both being true.
Yeah. The simulation theory, I think, is it's one that keeps me up at night. It's like the thought process of like, is this real or is it not? I'm just kidding. No, but it's something I do think about. It's just like a, it's like I don't have enough to worry about on my day-to-day basis. I have to have an existential crisis like semi-weekly, thinking like, is this cheeseburger I'm having really here or
I could taste it.
not? Therefore it is real, I think. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I think like people need to just like do their thing and like believe their things. Like is anyone to judge whether we're in a simulation until we can figure it out, right? Who is anyone to say whether they're aliens or not until we can figure it out? I guess that's sort of like an agnostic approach towards it. Maybe is that what agnosticism is? I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that used to be. I think actually that kind of is me in a nutshell. Like I'll believe it when I see it, because like I used to think manifestations were bullshit. I was like, this is just so some hippy dippy bullshit. Like it's not real. And then like, to be honest, I did it. Like I've manifested my life. I've built it out of nothing,
Mhm.
completely myself. So in that way, I guess I am a bit of an agnostic. I did believe it when I saw it because I saw the proof in the pudding.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
and like wonder with the whole simulation thing, I guess like I've gotten downloads and ceremony about that. Like we are just here for a short while and there are parallel lifetimes that we've lived and all that. I feel like it's kind of freeing to know you're in a simulation because you can take things like a little less seriously, you know?
I try not to take much of life as, you know, I take the serious things seriously, and I try to take things that I know are not going to serve me any real purpose, and keep them where they belong, like i.e. political conversations, things of the nature. Because at the end of the day, like you said, our time is so dramatically brief.
Mm.
Like, God forbid I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like in an hour from now, you know, I could choke. It's like, who the fuck knows?
Mhm.
So I try not to waste my time and energy on things that are not going to serve a purpose, because what's the point? There is no point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find yourself conscious or unconsciously considering like the shortness of life, your death, like things like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, well, some days I'm like, wow, it'd be so much easier without a body, you know? Like,
Well, not really, but
well, but I mean, if you could just like, yeah, it would be though. Like, without, you wouldn't have to eat, you wouldn't have to poop, you could just like go anywhere and make anything, like, just like that.
two of my favorite things to do.
Yeah. The best.
No, I think I know what you mean, but yeah. Like, I was talking about this with Justin. Like my only thing that I like think heavily on is my mortality and like friends and family passing away. Like, because again, it's like the time thing. It's the I could have done a million things in my life, like moved to California. I could have, I've thought about living over, abroad overseas and stuff. And all those things are still possibilities to me. It's not like any of those things are closed off. But to me, like when I get older, when I'm like, in my 70s and at the end of my story, I'm not going to necessarily have wished for a few years somewhere. I'm going to hope and and hopefully have realized more time with the people that matter most to me. And I think like ultimately, like for me at least, that's like what I've realized like my life is, right? Like it's going to be spending as much time with the people that I love as possible. Like that to me is a life. Like sure, it could be living on a boat in the middle of the ocean and fucking sailing the fucking oceans and whatever, but like that's not for me, right? It could be anything. Like I'm still going to travel, I'm still going to see the world, but I don't need to live in Paris for a year, right? Because like those 365 days, even if I was only going to spend 150 200 of them with the people that I love, those are 200 days that I'm never going to get back.
Mm,
So I mean that's sort
say that
of,
much.
yeah. Yeah, it's one of those. It's like been one of the great realizations I had. It's really just happened in the last couple of months because I was doing my lease renewal for my apartment. And I was like, man, this is so fucking expensive. I was like, this is crazy. I was like, I could go pay half this much. I can go live in Florence, Italy, like one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And then when you like really start getting down to the nitty gritty about like what it means for the time of your life, right? Like 1 year, it might not seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of the amount of times that I'll see my family and my friends, it could be completely life altering in a way that I wouldn't want to experience.
Mm, I'm all
Yeah.
with you.
I mean, listen, I'm not doing that well. I'm, that's not to say that I won't, get a portal and start creating, like money, 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 money. I mean, but I got to be honest. In a lot of ways, my financial success this year has made me realize that it's not ever going to be, um, like something that I can want more of, right? Like I've reached a point of comfort in my lifestyle and my finances that like I don't need to drive to make $2 million a year. I don't think that's like I won't be 200% happier, right? Like I'm not going to be. It's not going to be anything other than something more, and it's something that I don't need, which is real weird, especially considering like who I was 3 years ago, and that's all I was focused on. And now to be in a position where I'm having the best year of my life, and I could stop today, and I'd be okay. Like I'd be perfectly content.
Congratulations. That's huge.
Yeah, I'm like, listen, therapy was like a big thing for me. I nailed it, and I think like doing the work on yourself is something that I've harped on a lot on this podcast. I think everyone needs to find the self work that is something that's beneficial for them, and that could be therapy, and that could be ayahuasca, and that could be like so many different things for so many different people. But I found something that worked for me, and talk therapy was that thing, and getting to figure out like who I am and why I do things and what past experiences have led to future encounters and like things like that
Mhm.
have been very positively transformative for me.
That's beautiful to hear. I'm
Thanks.
seeing a therapist for the first time this coming Thursday.
Oh, like first time.
Well, I mean, I saw one when I was a teenager. She was a Christian therapist, And I wasn't a teenager, I was in college, and it was like right around the time where I was expanding outside of my religion. And so it just, we were speaking two different languages. Uh,
Hmm.
So I feel that this is the first time that I'm like really, really seeing a therapist. And I'm really excited because I've been unearthing some like really big awarenesses about myself and um, like why I've attracted certain people or certain situations. And same, probably, or similar to what you're saying, is like I want to understand my patterns and understand why I'm doing the things I'm doing so that I can shift it. Um, my
Hmm.
mom's a psychotherapist, so like when you
Oh.
have a mom that's a psychotherapist, you're like, hey, mom, the opposite because you're just working with like very refined layers of mentalities
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. I'm so excited for you. I think that's huge. I listen, you can always have very deep, meaningful conversations with family and friends, but all of their reactions and opinions will always come from a biased place of them knowing you for however amount of much time that they
Mhm.
have. And what I found is going to therapy with a person who doesn't know me at all and got to know me and then learned about the things that I was doing and or why I was doing them or why I was feeling a certain way or what was making me anxious or what was making me depressed. I was able to get like non-biased feedback and it really helped be able to make changes in myself. Like they frame thoughts and questions differently than your brother would or your sister would or your friend would of 20 years, right? Because they inherently have knowledge about you that will impact what they're going to tell you, and they care. And it's not like a therapist doesn't care, of course they care, but they care like with from like a 2 foot away sort
Mhm.
of stance, which I think is a benefit because they are allowed to give then an unbiased, unfiltered um sort of articulation of what you're doing. I think it's gonna be great. I'm excited for you. Are you like nervous at all? Are you scared?
Yeah, yeah, because I'm going into some shit that I haven't gone into yet. So it's just like, what's that like?
Yeah.
But it's necessary. Like it's time, you know? And I know that
Yeah.
only joy will come from it and only good things because like we we participate in patterns to keep us safe because they have previously, but when we know that they're not doing what they're when we're doing something to keep us safe that's not keeping us safe, then like that needs to be addressed so that we can find a different way to keep ourselves safe.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's like one of those things. If you like go into it with a positive outlook and like the thought process that this could be incredibly helpful, it will be. Like it's like with anything in life. If you go into something with any sort of negative feelings or trepidations towards it, it's not going to be good, right? Like you're bringing that negativity with you to it. But if you like are open to the possibility that this could be great, it probably will
Yeah.
be. What was the deciding factor that made you start? I mean, I'm assuming it was listening to the Wrong Advice podcast and me talking about how great therapy was.
Well, it was that.
Yeah. Good. Just so you know, this episode is brought to you by insert therapist office name.
But you know, wrong advice.
Yeah.
5 like,
PhD. PhD. Yeah, exactly. No, that's awesome. I'm super excited for you. I think that's going to be great.
cool.
I'm really excited to see sort of how that like unfolds for you over the next few months and years. I think I've only recently stopped going. It's one of those things where it's like I think I'll use it as a tool, sort of like a like a checkup on my car, right? Like you do an oil change every 12,000 miles, 15,000 miles. That's kind of like how I'll do it. Like I'll pick it up for a couple months at a time, like a year from now or whatever. But I've learned such good coping skills and so much about myself that I think that it's like it's been good for the little bit that I've not been going, that like I don't feel any sort of difference or like I'm lacking or missing out. Plus, it's like hella expensive. So
Yeah. You're probably chewing on the tools you got from last time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think there's like, listen, like it's great. I think it's great, and I'm a big proponent of it. And I think I'll end up going back eventually. I'm sure some girl will break my heart, and I'll be running right back
God, yeah.
I'm just kidding. You have to you have to be dating to get your heart broken. So I'm covered in that regard. Yeah, for sure. Um, I've entered like a really great creative phase of my life from a photography perspective. I think I'm sort of making like my best work. As an artist, like, do you find yourself going through like sort of seasons of creativity, like where you're like really really motivated to create or not so much, and like what is like how has that been as of late for you? Because like the work you're churning out a ton of fucking work, so I would imagine you're very highly creatively motivated lately.
Yeah. Um, for me, sometimes I will go through seasons where it's not on a canvas, but I'm learning that like I'm like very creatively powerful. So when it's not the canvas, I am not judging myself. I'm just looking at, okay, where is this going? Like where is my gut turning me? Where's my life force moving? And like, oh, it's in like collaborative photography. Oh, um it's like networking and like building this thing. Oh, I'm making a coloring book. So like even when I have those stints of not wanting to create, there is always something being created. Um with my portals and with my paintings, it's yeah, it really depends because when I go through heartbreak, I turn to the canvas. When want to create a new reality, I go to the canvas. When I'm in love, I go to the canvas. So I think I think it's just my instrument, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know that I feel that photography is my instrument yet, but it is the thing that I always want to be doing. I guess in some ways, then yeah, I guess it
There it
is.
is.
That was dumb. That was dumb. No, I mean like yeah, like I think there's always good days that happen where I don't have a camera in my hand. Like there's no question about that. But like I had a shoot Saturday. We're filming this on a Monday, and like it was great. We had a great time. The collaborative process was fantastic. Like the look concepts that we came up with and designed for the shoot, like everything was just like it was perfect. 10 out of 10. It was great. We're super happy with the results. And it's like every time that happens, like it's just another, okay, I'm doing this. I can do this. I can continue doing this. I'm doing the right things. This is what I'm meant to be doing. And I can see market improvement in my work, right? Like I know my work is better today than obviously it was 3 years ago when I started this journey. Um, you've been painting for fucking forever. Do you still feel growth like that from like a just like a physical, like visual, this is better than like does that happen?
No,
Yeah. You kind of like plateau at like a level of skill.
no. I would say
Oh.
that my ability to communicate what I'm doing is getting way better. So
Mm-hmm.
before, or I'm, very spiritual, psychic, have experienced mediumship come through my body through my artwork. So like earlier on, I was like, what the hell is happening? Like this is fucking beautiful, but like who's in my body kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm just more aware of how to navigate, how to harness, how to keep a clean channel, like not like create just for me, like not have things in my body, or to like really know what's coming through to like be clear about it. Um, and just outside of mediumship and artwork, the things I did a few years ago were so incredible. Like I was doing a lot of sculpture installation, like really tall, like 15-foot tall steel sculptures with like um, concrete and pipes, and I was doing like big paper installations. It was so fun, and like I think the work that I did back then is just as beautiful as the work that I'm doing now. what's been really cool is what the portals and what I'm doing now, it feels like everything has a function. Like, so that
Hmm.
was like beautiful art that could be in a gallery or like someone could want it in their house, something like that. This feels way more intentional. Like you could sit with a portal for years and it would continue to upregulate in value for you because of your personal connection to it.
Hmm. That's cool. I I kind of struggle with like I'm going to use the term the fine art aspect of photography because like yeah, I mean, I've got people who have prints of mine on their walls, and I'm marveled by that. Anytime someone asks me, like, "Hey, will you make a print of this?" I'm like, "Why? Are you fucking for real?" Um, but like, I never like in go through the intentionality of creating for that, and I'm wondering if maybe I should spend time trying to curate. Like I'm working on a book right now. I'm nowhere near done. But like I've been shooting a lot of Polaroids lately, and I want to do a book of Polaroids. I think I just have been super inspired by the medium and the just the aspect of taking Polaroid photos. So like I know I'm gonna make a book, right? Like I know that's on the agenda. But like in terms of like doing print series and stuff, like I wonder if I should like maybe, I'm just thinking about this just now. Like maybe I should start doing more printing my work and like we talked about it earlier. I have this love hate relationship with social media, but like where else do you put your work out other than social media, right? It's not like sure I can go about the process of finding local galleries and trying to get a show and then curating it. But like that to me just seems like more work than I would like to get into right now. But maybe yeah, I should start doing some more print stuff. I think you've inspired me.
Yeah, do it. And you can take a picture of it
Yeah,
on the wall too, and then post it on social
yeah,
media. And people be like, "Oh my god, that's what it looks like on the wall." I won't, you know.
that's a good idea. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. You've inspired me to do that. Yeah, I recently finished the Rick Rubin book, The Creative Life or The Life of Creativity. I forget what it's called. I don't know if you've seen it or read it. You know who Rick Rubin is, obviously, right? The music guy. Oh, you don't. He's like the a world famous music producer. Like worked with everyone in the '80s, like from LL Cool J, Beastie Boys. He produced on like every major album in history, right? Like anything that was like a gold platinum album in the '80s and '90s, he like was a producer on it. Just like a wildly creative, excuse me, weird guy. And he's like it's very funny because he did a 60 Minutes interview, which I watched. He doesn't play an instrument, or like he says, he doesn't play any instruments well, but he's a wildly successful music producer. And to me, it's like I've always found that whatever I do in my life, if I put the right intention into it and like I come at it with like the right mindset, I'll be successful at what it is. Whether it's a sales job, whether it's fucking sport that I was playing, whether it's photography, whether it's this podcast. Like if I put my all into it, it's going to be successful, and that's because of me. And in a lot of ways, I've always found that, like with you and your artwork, you've been able to sort of navigate a million different mediums, a million different feelings, a million different iterations and inspirations, and done in a way that's been incredibly inspiring to me as your friend. And I'm just like a huge fan of you and your work and everything that you do.
Thank you, John. That means so much.
You're welcome. I absolutely love having these conversations with you. I always learn something new, whether it's ayahuasca related or alien related, and it's just great. Like being able to have like someone who you can like get deep with, talk about life, like figure out things that are going on in each other's lives. Honestly, I genuinely think like if more people had the ability to talk to people like I do on a very frequent basis with even strangers on the internet, like you're not a stranger obviously, but I do have first conversations with people a lot. Like you could learn more about yourself and having these kind of conversations with people, instead of just being like buried in your phone on a 24/7
Oh
basis.
yeah, for sure. Like you know
Yeah.
different things about yourself by asking other people about them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I do tend to learn more about myself through having conversations with other people because like you just inspired me to do something today that I would never like had we not had this conversation today, I probably would have thought about for, you know, days, weeks, months, years, who the fuck knows? You know, it's one of those things. It's like I don't know what I don't know, and I just sort of make it up as I go along. um Yeah. But dude, I love you. I think you're a great human being. I'm incredibly appreciative of your friendship. I'm incredibly thankful for your time as always on this podcast. I don't need to wish you anything but the best because I know you have all of the brightest future possible in your eyes and everything. I am super excited for everything that you're going to accomplish over the next year and can't wait to do this again.
Me too. Thanks for having me on, John. This was so fun. I love talking to you.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care.
Bye.